Welcome to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Williams. This is the progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, conservative, or otherwise, you get to air your point of view. Remember, you can also send me a tweet to EGBERTOWILLIES. That is, at Egberto Williams. Let us engage. It is politics done right.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Well, folks, welcome to one more edition of Politics Done Right. I'm Egberto Williams, your host. Thank you so kindly for being a part of the show. We are going to have a great show for you today. You know, buenas tardes, Lupita. How are you doing, my dear friend?
I'm doing good. I missed you guys.
Yes, and we missed you. We miss the boys. But you are back with us now, so it's great having you. How's it going?
It's doing good. I'm feeling good. I'm working out consistently. I'm working, just kind of enjoying myself and getting back into my hobbies and stuff. Feels good.
That's great, isn't it?
Yeah.
It is great. But look, we're going to have a great show. How did you do with the flood? Did it affect you at all? Or?
Actually, I worked that day.
Oh.
And I went into work at 9 a.m. and I was scheduled until 2.
Uh-huh.
And I work at a retail store. So obviously it was pretty dead as far as customers.
Right.
And it actually ended up closing down early. But I live pretty far, so I didn't even want to risk driving home on the freeway. So I ended up staying with a friend who lives nearby where I work. And even then, the streets were already kind of getting flooded a little bit. I ended up spending the night just to not risk getting on the freeway.
You did the right thing, young lady. You did, I saw so many of those people just it's like, how did you get there? How did you get there?
Yeah, I had a friend who was actually just, was pretty much on the Beltway, like on the north side for 5 hours.
Ouch.
5
hours. 59, there are a lot of people that were stuck there in 59 too. It was really
And
bad.
it's crazy because I feel like, we did know there was rain coming because I knew it was going to be raining, but I did not know it was going to be to this degree or that we were going to have an actual tropical storm come in.
It's at 40 plus inches. Look, in fact, this is what we're going to be talking about, climate change today.
Oh, yeah.
This is kind of interesting because this is different, but we're going to talk about it. Folks, guess what? Today, the title of the show is Your Life is at Risk. Houston, America, climate change deniers. Are you listening? Are you listening, my dear brothers and sisters? The subtitle, The Climate Change Denying Pathology is Fatal. Oil companies knew this for over 30 years, yet we continue to reward them. Will reality and education stop insanity? I am not sure, but I think it better. Our survival depends on it. Climate change is real and we need to think about it way past the flooding. Look at Houston. Houston is the 4th largest city in the country, likely to be the 3rd largest. I don't know, with all these floods, Lupita, people may start, instead of keep coming like they have, they may start leaving. I've been reading a whole lot of people saying this is the last straw.
Actually, I'm very active on Reddit. It's a website that I really like. And, there's a specific sub for Houston. And there's a lot of people that, kind of go in there and like, oh, I'm thinking of moving to Houston for this job opportunity. And then you get a lot of Houstonians commenting and they're like, don't do it. Don't do it. Like, it floods and this and this and that. Or if you do, you have to kind of know what areas, or if you're going to build a house, make sure it's like elevated or something. There's a lot of stuff you have to take into account when living here.
It's amazing. You like Reddit, huh?
Yeah, I love Reddit.
I use Reddit every so often, but I don't go into it all the time. But my daughter likes it too.
It's something for everyone there.
Yeah, you just go ahead and get into those threads. But folks, as Lupita says, guess what? We're going to have to be careful because the flooding eventually is not only going to be a problem like, oh, we're flooded again, but it'll stop the growth of the city, the vibrancy of the city, and all these places that flood based on what? Climate change. A lot of people don't want to take this seriously. A lot of people, phone ringing. A lot of people don't like to take this seriously. Anyhow, climate change is real and we need to think about it. We need to think about it way past the flooding. I watched the documentary Blowout this weekend. It was put together by Newsy, AP, and Texas Tribune. Folks, the documentary put meat to what most of us fighting climate change perpetrators have been preaching for decades. It put meat on the bones of what we've been preaching, folks. While it will get quite a few upset, it gave me resolve. And folks, we have to start having resolve for this climate change thing. It is real, and too many think it's not. Anyhow, we have allowed these companies to make us sick, which is bad enough. But worse, we have allowed them to effect hardship, displacement, and death to subsequent many in subsequent generations. Typo right there. Shopping and reversing this has to be intentional. While many think it is the masses that will feel the pain from mitigation, we must change the dynamic. You know, a lot of people say, well, you know, it's business and business don't allow us to do this. Business doesn't allow us to do that. It's business, man. You know, we can't get anything changed because they're not going to spend their money to stop this crap. Well, I want to take the discussion to another level. I want to take it somewhere else. Those who inflicted the damage should suffer the consequences of what they did. Yes. Yes to the wealth tax. Man, I must be dyslexic. I wrote yes to the tax wealth.
Well, I mean, you're still getting the message across.
Yeah, I'm like, oh, okay. Anyhow, before I get to the program, though, I want to remind all, no, you're not going to do that to me. No, you're not going to do that to me. Well, before we get to the program, I want to remind all our listeners that KPFT is a very important station. KPFT is a bastion of intelligent voices and programs. As a political activist myself, my favorites are Think Wing Radio with
Mike Honig on Mondays at 3 p.m.
And then, of course, we have Open Journal with
Dwayne Bradley and crew on Mondays at 6 p.m.
And then we have Jazz Latino, Afro-Cuban Latin Jazz at its very best, hosted by the one and only
Juan Flores and me, Lupita. On Tuesdays at 12 noon.
There you go. And then, of course, there is Gener Asian Radio, a weekly radio program featuring an eclectic mix of Asian underground Bagra, Bollywood funk, Hindi, Rai, where ancient sounds meet future beats. And that is when again?
That is right after this show, Tuesdays, 4 to 6 p.m.
And you know, that's my show to get home on. I want to make sure things are smooth when I'm heading home. Anyhow, folks, check out our full schedule at kpft.org, where you can find programming from music to politics to medicine to the eclectic. KPFT is a listener-supported public community radio station. So please remember that if you like what you hear, visit kpft.org and ensure we remain a strong, viable community radio station that provides news programming and information not influenced by whom again?
The corporatocracy.
We can't do that, and we're going to kind of talk about that as well, folks. We're going to talk about that as well. We cannot leave it. Look, we are in command. Don't ever forget that. Don't let anybody tell you or let you believe that this isn't really a democracy and that it is only the elite that controls everything. There is only one person, or there are only one group of folk in control, and that's all of us, not just the elite. The elite have their control as well. They have a vote. You have a vote. But their vote should mean no more than your vote. And we should determine what our environment is going to look like. We should determine what our society is going to look like. We should determine what our government is going to look like, because it's all about we the people, and we cannot allow others to dictate it, to force us into a false belief, to do all that is necessary to have us vote against our own interests. So we're going to talk a whole lot about stuff like that. But do you know what time it is?
It's time for the weekly blog post.
Está bien, mis amigos. Let me tell you this. And then, caller, I'm coming to you right after the blog of the week. So stay with me, Tommy. And then, folks, don't remember this is a call-in show, 713-526-5738. Again, that number is 713-526-5738. I want the phones loaded because I want you guys to tell me what you think. Title of the blog of the week is $10 gasoline could bring us freedom, health, and help fix climate change. Now that all of you that heard me said I want to chop my head off, let me tell you, $10 gasoline, but here how we do it. Lupita, even you're going to love $10 gasoline. You don't think so, do you?
I don't know about that.
All right, you don't know about that? Well, listen to how it goes. Here we go.
Tell me about it.
I'm going to tell you about it. Houston and surrounding areas flooded for the third time in 2 years. Billions of dollars in damage will be paid by us all. This thing is, we know this was caused by climate change, and we already know who to blame. Many of our brothers and sisters on the right are always fixated on something taking their freedom away, yet they never go one level deeper to understand how their freedom is not being taken by the government, we the people, but from many corporations. People in the Houston area and those affected by the progressively increased severity of storms have given up their safety, their freedom. How? It is clear that there are companies selling a product that affect us all in many instances in a detrimental manner, and we have done little to force them to stop and to make those they've harmed, how to make them whole. The new climate change catastrophe affecting the United States and beyond are not acts of God. Again, they are not acts of God. They are the result of the action of corporations that have been allowed to use ideology and misinformation to provide a product in a detrimental manner. So, how do we solve the problem? A very high tax on gasoline and other hydrocarbons could solve the problem. But that collected tax, here we go, Lupita, you're paying $10 in taxes, in gasoline and taxes. But that collected tax must go to solve the problems created by these companies. Really meaning it should come right back to you. In other words, we're going to take it to bring down the cost of the usage of gas. They're going to make better cars, all that kind of stuff.
So it's for a good cause.
It's for a good, but not only that, it shouldn't really be costing you. Why shouldn't it cost you? You're not the one who created the problem. You're not the one who fooled people into believing that burning this stuff ad nauseum won't change the climate and cause you illness because you're breathing sulfur dioxide.
Doesn't this just go back to like centuries or like decades ago?
Yes, but you see the big increase in all these carbon, these gases in the air really took off with what we call the Industrial Revolution, when we really started burning. In other words, when you used to burn trees, right? Guess what happened when you burn a tree? You burn down a tree for your fuel, etc., etc. That tree grows back. Mm-hmm. And when that tree grows back, it pulls that carbon, that tree that burned down, right back into its body. And then, you know what people don't realize? Trees are solar energy. Right? Because when you plant a tree, you are taking the carbon that you took out when you burned the tree right back in.
Yeah, that's why there's a lot of like volunteer groups and like organizations that get together and plant trees.
Exactly. It is a good thing. The thing about it is in the Industrial Revolution, we are burning not only new trees, we're burning trees that were trees centuries, millions of years ago. And so we're putting that excess fuel into the atmosphere. That's what we're trying to get away from. But anyhow, so that should come back to you. Anyhow, continue with my blog of the week. The refining and burning of hydrocarbon without sequestration create corporate imposed illnesses. Remember what I said now? Corporate imposed illnesses. The climate changes it causes create floods, heat waves, damaged food production, and more. The collected taxes should be used to do several things. It should be used to provide health care, which means, Lupita, right now you're not paying $10 a gallon for gas, right? You're
Right.
paying $2 a gallon. But guess what? Burning that gas is making you sick. Burning that gas is going into your lungs. Burning that gas is giving people cancer. It's giving them all these diseases that guess who pay for? They have to then pay for that insurance and pay for all these medicines and so forth to solve that. So you're not paying for it in the gasoline price, but you're still paying it.
In another way.
What I'm saying, let's be honest. Let's put it in the price of gas, what's causing the problem, then pay for your health care. You're no longer going to pay for your health care. You pay for your health care, Lupita, and what happens then is that is the way it's done. So let me continue that so I can start getting the phones. Additionally, it should be used to create an infrastructure to mitigate flooding in some areas and lack of water in others. In other words, since climate change created by the corporatocracy created the floods, created the droughts that affect growing and all these things, the taxes that we are going to collect from all these things will be used to build dams, will be used to build canals, will be used to build retention ponds, would be built to raise streets, would be used to build homes. All these things that these corporations caused would be mitigated by the damage they created. So it should be used to free us from oil in the long term. Subsidize turning every building into a solar generating and wind use station where applicable with battery storage. And lastly, it should be used to create a massive worldwide reforestation program. Over time, reforestation will sequester the excess carbon as we move to net zero carbon emissions, and we will be healthier. A lot of people like to say things like, oh, if we go ahead and just start planting trees, the things that we're going to notice in the long run is that, well, we are still at a baseline in carbon and it's still going to... No. If we go to net zero carbon, eventually the carbon will be removed from the air and we will start bringing down the amount of carbon. Then, of course, there are technologies like Carbcrete and all these things that pull carbon out of the air and throw out there. So there's a lot of stuff that we can do. So over time, reforestation will sequester the excess carbon as we move to net zero carbon emission, and we will be healthier. This will be complicated to implement, but it is a starting framework. We need to make the decision that this is where we need to go and then fit our economic system to do it. In other words, we don't think business first. How much is that going to cost? That is out of the question. It doesn't matter how much it's going to cost. What it means is we fit our economic system to live up to our reality. Those who believe in freedom and justice should love this. After all minerals should be owned by us all. After initial cost recovery, it should all be in the commons. Folks, the telephone number is 713-526-5738. Again, that number is 713-526-5738. Let me go to the first caller. Tommy, come on in. Tommy, you're on.
Hey, what did you say about burning trees? Like, did you say corporations burn trees?
No, not at all. I didn't say corporations burn trees, although corporations used to burn trees, but no, not anymore.
Don't they cut trees, not burn them?
Yeah, they cut trees, but they also burn trees. I mean, you have to remember in the olden days when they used to make coal briquettes and all that kind of stuff, they cut down a lot of forests to do things like that.
Okay, well, that's not I couldn't hear you at that point. Anyway, I talked about this on my show, climate change.
Yeah. This is my buddy, Tommy.
What's that?
This is Tommy. ¿Cómo estás, hermano? What's going on?
Brother? Yeah, I have a millennial on my show now, and yeah. I'm loving indoctrinating him. He's 24.
Oh, poor thing.
Anyway, you know there's a difference between the climate and the weather, right?
Of course, big difference.
It is a big difference.
Yes.
For one, the climate does change, but not dramatically. What you're talking about is weather. Of course, the weather changes. No,
I'm talking about climate.
The climate relatively stays the same. As a person, and you know that I drive clean across America.
Yes.
For the past 20 years.
Yes.
Every state, every coastline, everywhere I've been, the climate's been the same for 20 years.
Okay.
Climate. but the weather does change dramatically.
Right.
The climate doesn't change. It changes a little bit,
Tommy?
not a lot.
Tommy.
So why do you guys call it climate change?
Let me tell
now,
you
when it
why,
was
Tommy.
first
Tommy,
global cooling.
I will tell you
predicting
why,
the ice
Tommy.
age, then global
Tommy.
warming.
Hermano
What-
mío.
what- what-
Déjame hablar. All right, let me
Go ahead.
explain to
Sorry.
you, sir. First of all, I must tell you with the amount of respect I have for you, you're wrong. Okay?
All right.
And let me
Okay.
tell you how wrong you are. It is okay
right.
for you to be a driver that goes around and by the way, you're more than a driver, brother. You are a business owner, a driver, you're big stuff, okay? Let's get it right. All right.
Stop
Phone
pulling my
ringing.
head.
Let's get it right. You know I love you.
All right.
But anyhow, here's the deal, brother. The phone's ringing. But here's the deal, bro. Let me tell you this. It's important. You're wrong. The climate changes has changed dramatically over the last several decades, and I'm not talking slowly. I'm talking rapidly. It is true.
Okay, let me pause you then. Let me pause you.
I didn't pause you, so
you said several decades,
Yes.
so 70 years.
Over 70 years, yes, sir.
Okay, 70 years, so way before cars and all the CO2
No, sir.
emissions that are now.
Let me explain.
Way before that, how did that happen?
Okay, do you understand something called geometric progression, right? Geometric progression means when you start doing a change, or I didn't mean geometric progression, I meant exponential growth. When you start making a change, you start very small, and then as you, the way these things happen, they kind of explode near the end. We saw this gradual change for several decades right now, and over the last few decades, it has exploded. Here's the deal. Our overall Earth temperature has increased by about 1-point-something degrees thus far.
Oh my God, a dramatically 1 degree.
Yes, that is huge because you see, and that is what's hard to explain to many of my brothers and sisters on the right, because they are not they know that they don't want to be science-based. It's not that they can't. They don't want to be science-based because they want to follow a particular ideology. You, Tommy, my brother. Okay. But that is wrong, right? When you see what's happening as far as the melting of the ice caps, et cetera, places that used to moderate the temperature of the Earth. When you see these things occurring, they're real. When you see areas around the world, and the thing about it, in America, we don't quite see it yet because of where we are. But when you see the floods that are occurring in Bangladesh, the disposition of people, displacement of people, etc., it's real. And looking at it in your localized view is not right. Now, if we take a look at, let's take a look at the statement that you've just said.
You said I was wrong when I told you I admit the climate does change.
Yes.
And you just said that it changed 1 degree.
No, I said what we have in the last several years is a 1 degree increase, and that is 1 degree Celsius, that is.
Okay,
increase.
so in 70 more years, that thing goes back down 1 degree. So we're all even?
No.
Okay, so you're not gonna change my mind, but let me ask you this.
Yes.
Did you see that article of the 50 years of false predictions?
They
predicted
I didn't see the article, but I heard about it.
Coming of an ice age.
I heard about
it. And then it came to global warming. And now the libs are just like that. Screw it. We'll just call it climate change.
No, let me tell you what happened. No. The argument was wrong. It's still global warming. Let me explain. And you see, that is a bad thing when people know how to cherry pick documents to create a story to fool people like yourself. You know, I gave on my show yesterday, I played a piece by Gladwell. You know who Malcolm Gladwell is. He talks about people being very easy to convince of certain things. And the reason why is it's more efficient if you become a person who believes what somebody tells you, a trusting person. And what we find is that most people are trusting. It just depends on who you trust. In your case, you're trusting to the argument on the right. I am trusting to the argument on the left. Now, the interesting thing about it is...
my belief has nothing to do with right or left. That's just what I
understand, but that you're wrong, it's hard to explain because you trust the information that you've gotten from the right. Because that's why, but I'm not going to change it, but keep listening to the program because I have a whole lot of calls coming up.
One more
Real quick.
I'm going to end with this.
Yes.
Did you hear about those kids that went on that trip, about the climate change trip? And did you hear? I have audio. I obviously can't play it now, but I have audio of these kids screaming out like, you're killing us, and we only have 11. I don't know why 11, so specific.
Send it to me, Tommy.
To live. And then this one thing that just shot out at me that grabbed my attention was one. It sounded like a young girl. She said, and
no dirty words.
Black people are more prone to air pollution, and she says climate change is racist. And I'm like, oh my God, that is so horrible what these people are doing to these kids.
Okay.
Because I remember when I was a kid, my uncles would babysit me, and they would tell me these things so I could act right, about the cucuys and, the La Llorona and stuff like that.
Claro.
And to make think right. And so,
hey, Tommy, I understand what you're saying, and you and I come on my show tomorrow, and we can talk about what she really meant. She said it wrong, but when she talked about climate change being racist, that's not what she really meant. But we'll talk about that another time. Okay, brother?
All right, brother.
You take care now. Bye-bye. Okay, come on in, Gary.
Egberto.
Yes, sir.
I called with bad news, my friend.
Oh, the population, right?
Well, would you like a little science there, Mr. Science?
Sure, I would love some science, brother. You know I love to listen to your science.
Don't mock me about population. And let me just say
okay, hold on a second, Gary. I don't mock my listeners because I have too much respect for that. It's just that you are my population person.
No,
okay?
I'm trying to tell you all right, you want to listen?
Yes,
Here
I
we
will.
go. The industrial age began in the 1850s,
yes.
right?
Yes, sir.
And we didn't even have a Ford Model T till 1915, right?
True.
And when my grandmother was born in the 1880s, there were 1 billion people on this earth.
Yes,
it took millions of years to get 1 billion human beings, and there weren't any cars in India, China, Africa, South America, Canada, you name it.
True.
Now, when I was born, it was not even 100 years later in the 1950s, and there were 2 billion people on this world. We doubled in 100 years.
Yes, sir.
I'm only in my 60s, and there's now almost 8 billion people on this planet. Now, it's not people. Well, there is an issue with forestation and feeding people and having land to grow food on, okay? But you want to take 1 billion versus 8 billion, here's the situation. There are a couple of cars tooling around and maybe a couple of the Wright brothers airplanes and a couple of steamships didn't do much to anything.
Right.
But when you've got 1 million cars in India and 1 million cars in Nigeria and 1 million cars in Brazil, and you've got 10,000 jet planes in the sky today. I'm not even counting all the cities that have power plants, okay? The issue that motivates this, everybody's treating the symptoms, saying, well, we got to mitigate carbon, we got to limit how much we put out, but you're still going to have, in about 15 years, you're going to have almost 10 billion human beings, and they're not going to go riding horses and camels and cows anymore, son. So the fact of the matter is, it is the actual cause is overpopulation, and nobody will address that fact, okay? If there were just you and me and our wives, we could be driving buses, man. It wouldn't make a damn bit of the difference.
Let me tell you something, Gary. First of all, let me tell you, your numbers are spot on based on, you don't give fixed numbers, but you gave proportionalities.
Well, we give science.
I understand. Let me finish. I got you, brother. I got you. Okay? So your proportions, all of that is right? Now, I want to give you another proportion here that I think, I don't know how to mitigate population expansion without saying we are going to force women to...
We can't. That's the point. We're doomed. That's what I'm telling you.
Let me finish.
It happened throughout the history of life, all right?
Let me finish.
Had coelacanths. They were gone. Dinosaurs. Now they're gone.
Gary, you got to let me talk now.
All right.
Here's the deal. There are ways that we can mitigate population growth. Some of the people won't consider them ethical, right? But eventually, when we reach a certain breaking point where science and technology cannot suffice, we'll get there. But here's my theory. And the numbers just add up this way, right? And that is, you're correct that if we only had 2 billion people on the earth, more than likely we would be okay. All right, but here's a kicker: if we have 8 billion people with the usage of with the efficiency of what 2 billion people used to live at without creating an environmental problem, we could do that. So what I'm saying is, if we are able to use technology to mitigate the valid problem that you're discussing, then let's do it. And
all right, let me respond. Did you not say that deforestation was impacting the climate?
Yes.
And you're absolutely 100% right.
Right,
However,
and let me give you a solution to that.
People eat food, and what are you going to do? Have a couple of cornfields on Mars, son? People got to eat, and they're going to eat, and they're going to reproduce. Now, I have two solutions to climate, and everything you said was spot on, 100% about mitigating carbon, about growing forests. I couldn't agree more.
Right.
But there are two things that will solve the future of humankind.
Let's hear it.
Education, contraception.
Hey, I think we're in agreement.
How do these people that are opposed to abortion? You can't be opposed to abortion and opposed to preventing the child that gets aborted at the same time. You can't be opposed to contraception, preventing a child from being aborted, and abortion. That's hypocrisy.
You know something, Gary? I think I'm going to close out with you on that one, because I think I don't see that there is much disagreement. In fact, I don't think there's any disagreement between what you believe and what I believe. So
that's why I listen to you, man.
All right, my brother. You have a good one, okay?
Bye-bye.
Take care now. Bye-bye. Okay, let's go to John. Come on in, John. And by the way, we have lines open, 713-526-5738. Again, that number is 713-526-5738. Come on in, John.
Hey, Berto. How are you doing?
I'm doing fine, sir.
Hey, I have a question for you. I don't want to take away from any of your progressive steam for railing against the corporatocracy, but I would have to argue that but for the corporatocracy to a degree, we wouldn't enjoy the much longer lifespans and, lifestyles that for the most part, most people in this world enjoy today as opposed to 100 or 150 years ago.
First of all, I don't know. I can't disagree necessarily with that. In other words, well, let me not give you that complete thing there. I can't give you that completely thing there. Okay, the corporations have developed a lot of good stuff under our model. Okay, there's no doubt about that. But to sit down there and believe that a corporation within a capitalist model is the only thing that would have done that, or is the only thing that could have done that, very respectfully, I would have to tell you, in that respect, you're wrong. Now, it so happened that... Go ahead, then I'll continue. But folks, you have open line 713-526-5738, 713-526-5738. Go ahead, John.
Well, no, I'm not going to disagree with you. I will simply say that is a hypothetical shoulda, woulda, coulda type of argument. We have the world in which we live.
Yes.
And for the most part, unleashing the capitalistic system, for however you want to take that rabbit hole, has given more, my belief, it has given more development, more positive developments for this world than not.
Okay, and let me stop you right there, because this is an important concept now. What it has done is, I think you shouldn't say for the world. I think you need to say for the Western world, because what you don't see as an American citizen that does not necessarily have the broadest view, and I don't say that as an insult or a pejorative. I'm saying that for just the way things are. When you are a born American like you are, okay, you see things from one perspective. The other perspective is, how did America become the great nation that it is? It had many other places had to be exploited. It's not an easy thing to say, but it's the truth. Let's give an example of the bauxite in Jamaica, or we can use the example of the product using the abuse production of places in South and Central America. I mean, there's a lot that That beautiful store that you go into, and HEB and all those great products that you see, right? It's a different. Go ahead.
Sorry. Oh, well, I was just gonna say I understand your argument, okay, and you put it from a Western perspective, but let me offer another picture a little
Sure.
bit. Let's look at a historical perspective, even before the United States was ever founded. Empires all over this globe.
The world, yes, sir.
Okay.
Abusing people. Please make sure to put that in there. That enslaved people around the world.
People were exploited. I get this. But what I'm saying is you're arguing it from a Western perspective. I'm saying that goes even before America's founding.
I am not going to disagree with you. People doing evil to others to empower a few is not something American. It's not something Western. It is something that has happened throughout the entire time. And you're right, sir.
It's unfortunately human.
Yes, but here's what I'm saying. Phone's ringing, but here's what I'm saying, my brother. And this is what I wish people would understand. As we have gotten more educated, as we have gotten more, what is the word that I want to use? Put it this way. We are not as violent as a people in general. The average, I'm not talking about the corporatists, the capitalists. They are generally very violent people. They don't do the violence themselves, but they don't mind doing violent for their ulterior motive. You remember that movie that says greed is good? You remember when that movie came out, Wall Street, and
right,
and Kirk Douglas said greed is good and all that good stuff. The reality, and that people are greedy, and that is what makes the world go around. The reality is in being a blogger and being a radio show host, in meeting thousands and thousands of people, and I mean all over the country, both electronically and throughout, what I realize is this: most people are damn good people, but they're controlled by a few bad people. And
I will actually agree with that sentiment.
Right.
To be honest with you, I used to travel the country extensively, and I agree, and I don't want to get off on a tangent because I agree with a lot of the reason I'm saying.
But there's a reason why I said that, though, John. There's a reason why I said that. The reason I said that is I wanted to put a corollary onto what you said. That this has been happening from the beginning of humanity, and I'm saying you're right. But the beginning of humanity and all these other things, we never had the ability to develop the type of the type of democracy that we have, where people are starting to feel empowered. And what I'm trying to say is we have to use that empowerment to ensure that those anarchic, those capitalists, those people that perform evil don't get the upper hand. We empower people to know that is exactly who they are, empowered people. Go ahead, sir.
Well, and then I'm going to circle back to what I started with, because I did want to make one point. And
yes, sir.
This was going back again to your statement of my Western view. My point of view was, I think globally overall, yes, obviously a lot of nations don't fare as well as the West has done, but I also look at what the West does and our outreach into countries that don't do as well. Immunization program, Doctors Without Borders. I'm just saying that the corporations at some point, respectfully and beneficially being loosed, created a lot of that good that does tend to flow outward, that I think exemplifies the good that is in most human beings.
And I am not going to disagree too much with you on that, but I will say just don't give too much of that credit to the average corporation. Give that credit to exactly who I think you gave the credit to at the end, which are people that went beyond the concept of the corporation to do good, because that is what they've had to do. And the first time corporations are running into problems, those are the first things that get cut. And you understand, they thought they have the fiduciary responsibility, sold it to the shareholders and the executives. That's what they would do. But I'm with you. You know what is so interesting talking to folks, including my conservative brothers like yourself, right, is that there's so much little difference between the values that good people have and ideology. I mean, it's amazing. And what we have is a society now that puts us so much at our throats because that is necessary for that thing that you hear Lupita always talk about, the corporatocracy. for that thing to be successful, you and I have to be fighting, and you and I will never fight. John, anything else real quick?
Well, just one thing. I mean, by your own admission, in a way, you know, I think most people are inherently good.
Yes.
Corporations are made up of people.
Yes, I agree. I agree.
And that's kind of my point of view. I think a lot of these people, I spent a great deal of time in the medical center as I was a ward down there for about 6 months.
Right.
And I saw such a wellspring of goodness in our healthcare. And I was in one of the learning hospitals where new technology was being created by people who really just wanted to do good.
Hey, John.
And
we're on the same team, brother. We're on the same team. You may not know it, but we're on the same team. You have a good one, brother.
You too. Bye-bye.
Right. Bye-bye. Okay, let's go to El Señor Anthony, número uno.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Hey, so first things first, I just want to say I really appreciate your show and what you're doing, all your free-thinking, wonderful, thought-provoking words that are always coming on the air.
Thank you, sir.
And, I wanted to elaborate a little bit on this idea of whether or not capitalism is ultimately beneficial or detrimental to our society.
Sure.
And so just some of my personal thoughts, as well as some things I've had some inspiration from other people older and wiser than I am. There's been a lot of good to capitalism, no doubt. It's driven a lot of innovation. We have amazing technology, and there's just no doubting the amazing accomplishments of the system. However, looking at it now, you can tell that there are some flaws to it where people, in fact, have to be some kind of evil, some kind of liar, some kind of cheater if they want to succeed. Mechanics don't have work unless cars break down, and if cars aren't breaking down, then the mechanic has to make up a problem. And if a politician even wants to have power, then they usually have to have some kind of backing or support by big corporations, because they have most of the power in today's society. Not only are we a democracy, but just like you were saying, like Lupita likes to say, there's a corporatocracy that's in place, and it's precisely because of how strong, how great and powerful the capitalist society has made these corporations. And so we're going to need to find some kind of medium, some kind of balance moving forward where we find value not in just money itself, but people who are actually working to benefit society.
Sir, I could not have gave that prose any better myself. I agree with absolutely everything that you said, including the last statement, which is what we all should be working for. And that is, it's not enough to just tear down capitalism. Capitalism, you know, what I tell people is people go look at the skyline to Houston. I remember a caller calling to me and says, look at the Houston skyline, look at all the freeways and look at all these great things capitalism have built. And my next question to that person is, and how much of it can you use? Because most of what's built are things, I mean, there are people who are building buildings they can never enjoy. They can never go into. They're building homes for the rich and famous they'll never touch. We have to understand those things. And when Jeff Bezos has $160 billion, that is all the monies he hadn't paid to the people by minimizing what he paid to them so that he could have more. I know people want to say, well, that is capital gains. Well, that is capital gains that was inherited or inherently made by somebody else. So we have to have a more equitable way of distributing what's made. And so you're correct in that last statement as well, where you say we have to adjust the system to reflect its realities. And if we do that, it'll be fine. And what I tell people all the time is you need to support what we are trying to talk about. Those of us that are talking about changing the system, you need that, because if you don't have that, the way the system is going to change is not going to be in the peaceful way that we want it to change. Anthony, anything else before we go?
I just would like to emphasize the necessity that another caller was talking about earlier. The solution, or actually contraception has nothing to do with this, but education is going to be one of the main things that's going to help us get to that point. People just need to have an expansion of their networks and their abilities, because just a meritocracy isn't what we have. It's what would be ideal. You know, people who have something to provide are the people who are able to do so, but that's just not the case today. We need some adjustment, like I said, but I don't want to be a broken record. Thank you for your time, sir.
Thank you so kindly for the call, and thank you for your thoughts, sir. You have a wonderful day now. Okay, let's go to El Señor Torri. Come on in, Torri.
Hey, Egberto, another great show today.
My brother, talk to me.
A couple of things.
Yes.
One is about the environment. There's a group called Extinction Rebellion.
I've heard of them. In fact, I worked with one of them as they pasted themselves onto the doors in Congress last month. They super glued their hands. Great group.
Yeah, so they've been having a good history over in England for a while, making a big splash, and they're getting started in the U.S., and there's a group starting here in Houston.
Oh, there's one in Houston.
We had our first meeting last week, and there's a couple weeks ago, and tonight is the second meeting. We're meeting over at the Harris County AFL-CIO building, which is on Sutherland, southeast Houston, near Telephone Road and OST.
Oh, the Union Center.
The exact address is 2506 Sutherland, 7 to 8:30 tonight. Please, everybody come that cares about the environment. And I wanted to address something that another caller had said about overpopulation. Nobody has used the S word, sustainability, because, I agree we need less people, for a lot of different reasons. But that's not, the main problem is not that we don't have contraception. The main problem is that we don't live sustainably. That I'm going to drive across Houston to go to a meeting and spend 2 gallons of gas to go to a meeting about sustainability. That's where our contradictions are. We don't live sustainably. And then he mentioned something about the Industrial Revolution, and you even agreed with him, starting in the 1850s or something. Really, we need to define the Industrial Revolution by humans using coal to power machines to take the place of human and animal
Well,
muscle.
it also came with a consumer society, right? When we started building so many things, we have so many things, and that takes energy.
Well, consumer society is different than industrialization.
Right.
It's, we can connect the dots, shout out to Robert Muhammad, but it's the 1760s is when they started using coal to replace human and animal muscle. That's industrialization.
Right.
It gets here in the 1820s. 1850s is notable because they come up with the Bessemer process. That's when things really take off.
Oh, yeah.
When they figure out how to make steel much harder so you can support big trains and make really good guns and stuff. And that led to the Civil War.
There you go.
Anyway, I'm done.
Tori, thank you so kindly for your great thoughts all the time, brother.
Oh, yeah, and social safety nets. The countries that, the overpopulation is because having 17 kids is the old-fashioned version of Social Security.
Right. No,
and when we need, these advanced industrial countries with big social safety nets like Germany, they don't have enough people. They have to import people to work at jobs because they just don't have enough. Because, when you have everything you need, you don't need kids to take care of you. A lot of people opt out and would rather take, 3 months vacation a year, instead of hanging out with the kids.
Tori, thank you for your thoughts. And I want to throw it back at Anthony. Anthony talked about, it was implying, there are changes that we have to make. Yes, we have to make. So, I like all the discussions that we're coming today because I could write down everything that everybody had to say today and come out with a policy plan because it's amazing that we had conservative calls and progressive calls. And if you look at what occurred, you saw a convergence. Thank you so kindly for your call, Tori.
Thank you. Tonight, Extinction Rebellion, 2506 Sutherland, 7 o'clock.
There you go, folks. Have a good one. Thank you, brother. Bye-bye. Okay, come on in, William. Let's see. Come on in, William.
Hi, Egberto.
Talk to me real quick, sir, my brother.
Yeah, this is real quick. What's going on in Yemen and Iran, right?
Yes, sir, I do.
Yeah, and, the premier, or the head guy for Iran said, well, if Saudi Arabia would quit bombing Yemen, they've been at war with Yemen, and Yemen doesn't even have airplanes. You know what I mean? And nobody they're flipping the other way. All the media, they don't even mention it.
Look, if you think our media is going to mention anything that doesn't support the military-industrial complex, you're dreaming. Come
I know.
on.
It's not a dream, it's a nightmare.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's the truth. The truth of the matter is, I'll be honest, I must be honest with the audience. I am not very well versed in the Yemen story. I probably should be more versed in the Yemen story, but I'm not.
It's just about the way they worship or something. I mean, it's absolutely insane.
Yeah, well, all I know, though, is if there's a war, we want to be there. But thank you so kindly for calling, my brother William.
Well, press these presidential candidates.
What's that?
They need to be, hit with the question: why is this nonsense allowed to percolate? Where they demonize Iran, and they don't even talk about Saudi Arabia. They've been at war, and everybody in the United States is pissed off about the fact that we're involved in that by supplying all them arms.
Thank you, my brother. You have a good one. And as usual, thank you for calling, and you have a great day, buddy.
Oh, well, I'm working on it. Thank you.
All right, bye-bye. Okay, come on in, Mike.
Hey, how you doing, Egberto?
I am doing fine, sir. Talk to me.
I hadn't talked to you since you was on Thursdays on a regular basis.
Oh, why haven't you waited so long? I'm hurt now.
Well, it's having to deal with medical issues.
Okay,
so.
I hope you're getting better, sir.
No, not going to do that.
Well,
I might prolong, but I'm not going to get better.
Let me tell you what to do. You stay stable. You just do what you do.
That's what I'm trying to do.
There
just stay stable.
Listen,
here's my point, man.
Yes.
Is what we need to do. I don't have access to the internet, or I'd be trying to get this started myself. But we need a coalition of voters, progressive voters.
Yes.
Not Democrat, not whatever, just progressive voters.
Yes.
They can be Democrat if they want to be, but they don't have to be. They need to be progressive, meaning we want to progress to the future.
Right.
We don't want to be stuck in the present and die in the past. Because that's what we're doing now. We're stuck in the present and we're dying in the past.
Yes.
And if we want to progress to the future, we need to come to the decision as voters that it's more important to save our democracy than it is to save somebody's congressional seat. And they need to go to their congressional, their Congress people who are in these Trump districts and say, hey, look, I don't care that you're worried about your congressional seat. You need to say that you're not going to run for a re-election, and you need to take a stand on what Trump is doing to this country.
Sir, let me tell you something, Mike. That one of the reasons I love Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Rashida Tlaib, Ilhan Omar, and Ayanna Pressley, the squad, is because these young women, that is exactly what they're preaching. That is exactly what
but they're doing it from strong Democratic. What everybody's saying out there is that, but these ones from the Trump districts, they're afraid to get out on
understand.
Well, they need to quit being afraid because democracy is more important than their damn congressional
I wanted to finish, Mike. Let me tell you what
sorry, but I'm just saying that those four are all from strong, all but one of them are from strong
It's
Democratic.
not about that, though. It's about what they're doing is what I was trying to
I'm glad what they're doing, too.
They are actually getting folks that don't act accordingly with the progressive motion movement that we need now primaried. And you said something that is very important, okay? We all, those of us that are progressive, know that centrism and rightism has destroyed this country. We know that, or is destroying this country. And therefore, if we just settle and say, well, we have to abide, that we have to conform to some mythical center, all we are saying is we are okay with the continued destruction of the country. We have to take a stance, and in that stance, it actually means.
I can't agree with that. What I can agree with is that the center is too fickle.
Let me finish, please. Let me finish, and then you can respond. Centrism is what we have been practicing for the last 30 years, and we can take a graph and see exactly what it has done to the country. We can, this is not a question, right? We can actually graph what centrist policies has done materially to the country.
But there haven't been any centrist policies. It's been a fickle center for decades, and it goes from left, and then it goes to right. It wants to be fiscally responsible, but it wants to be progressive, socially progressive, and that's what the center is all about.
Why
we need a party to fit them into a mold where they will be a power for this country. country instead of a destructive power, a building power.
Sir?
Because as they are, like you say, once they keep bouncing from left to right to left to right, they are destroying the country.
Yes, and that's
they
what's
need
occurring.
to stick with progressive.
Sir, I don't see how we disagree. I just gave an example as far as what has occurred and why we need progressives.
But see, what you're doing is you're blaming all the people who have the power to change this country, because the left isn't going to change anything, because they're all left anyway. You're not going to change their mind, and they're not going to change anybody's mind.
Who's going to make
and
the
the right's
change?
not going to change the country except for the worst, the way Trump
I need
is
to go
right
to
now.
the last caller,
and you're
but let
not
me
going
ask
to
you this.
change their mind.
I gotta
the
go to the
only
last
ones
caller.
who you're going to change their
Yeah.
mind are in the center, and you're constantly putting them down.
Hold one
you're
second.
constantly
No,
saying they're tearing up the country.
Sir,
you're constantly saying
sir,
how weak they are.
sir.
And you're constantly saying they need to go further to the left.
Mike.
And if you keep doing that,
Mike.
all you're going to do is contribute to these assholes on the right who are destroying our country
Mike.
and tearing apart our
Mike.
democracy and
I gotta go. Mike.
and
Mike.
implementing
I gotta go
treason
to
on
the
a
last-
daily basis on an international scale.
Mike, I got to go, but I want to continue this conversation with you at another call, okay? Because you have to see where we're at. Thank you. Okay, let's go to line 2. Come on in, talk somebody. Let's see, because I don't have a name on it.
Hi, this is Ray.
Ray, talk to me.
Hi, Umberto. I was wondering, do you know when Johnson & Johnson was ordered to pay $572 million for its role in the opioid crisis?
Yes, I
Who
remember.
pays for that fine? Is it the taxpayers? I mean, because they eventually write it off as business, do they not?
Well, eventually they'll write some off as business expense. Eventually, that would be that would be cost of doing business. All of us eventually pay for it.
Right.
All of us that use your drugs eventually pay for it. So that's what happens.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering, because my understanding is that Trump has sued the government a lot of times and won a lot of money against the United States government, and so the taxpayers wind up paying for most of that.
It's all a circle. Let me tell you the only way we can get it, and some of the people were trying to do that, and the way to get it is go at not the corporate money, but go at the asset accumulated by the rich person who owned the company. That is when things will get stopped. In other words, if you take a look, if you go ahead and hit their assets, not the corporate assets, because they make that right back. Hit the person's personal assets. But we can go into that later. I got to go to MOD, last call. Anything else real quick?
No, real quick. By the way, I got your book from the last donation I made with you guys. So thank you, man.
Thank you so kindly, sir.
All right,
you have a wonderful day, okay?
You too, bye.
Bye-bye. Okay, MOD, come on in.
Hello?
Real quick, MOD, come on in.
Nah, I've been on hold for 50 minutes. I just want to say hi.
I figured you only wanted to say hi because you're here to visit all the time.
I enjoy waiting 50 minutes, Berto, so it's okay. Well, how you doing, man? What's going on?
I am doing fine, especially since I have you on the line, MOD, one of my good
Berto,
regulars.
You can tell me that 50 minutes ago, man.
No, I could not tell you that 50 minutes ago.
Okay, well, I was hanging out,
because
man.
you're not on the thing here. But anyhow, how you doing?
I never am, Berto. That's okay. I like getting the very last second and say hi to you.
Give me a quick comment before I gotta go.
No sense. I'm just glad to say hi, man. What's going on?
I'm doing fine, and I think we're going to make a change this time around because we are going to make the change happen. All right, MOD?
Hey, man. So it's pretty outside today.
Yes, it is. It is.
Man,
it is beautiful.
Fall's coming. I like this weather.
And the temperature is great. And Lupita is looking at me, so I'm going to have to cut right out. So, folks,
I was getting ready to get started.
Here you go. This is Egberto Willies, and with Politics Done Right. And guess what? In 5 seconds, I'm going to tell you this. I am what? Very much out.
Welcome to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Willies. This is the progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, conservative, or otherwise, you get to air your point of view. Remember, you can also send me a tweet to EGBERTOWILLIES. That is, at Egberto Willies. Let us engage. It is Politics Done Right.
1, 2, 3, 4.